our company is called Columbia Road. It's a subsidiary of Futurize. You may have heard subsidiary started last year. And all of my career, I've been working as a user-centered designer. Mr. Ulas Virta, professor Ulas Virta was talking about and talking about. I think for me the new kind of idea here is, or why I'm talking about these topics is like having a more of a business mindset to this, because it actually might make sense to think about that in addition to doing stuff that's very user-centered. So I'm not necessarily talking a lot about creating new innovations, but maybe more about just how to drive sales. And Columbia Road has now 30 people, and we have lots of wonderful clients. And working with these companies has been very exciting, but it hasn't been like mail.ru exciting, because we don't have so much traffic in our services. And I think Eetu will soon show stuff from Veikkaus that will be very much more kind of big data driven. But the one thing that is common for all of these companies is that the digital commerce, selling something online, is not an IT project. So that's really one of the things that we want to highlight there. It's although we're speaking here at the Helsinki Design Week, it's not like an art project either. So it does not happen in an atelier. And one kind of rule of thumb that I have is that when you're working on a design project and you work with something physical, if you have not worn a reflective vest at any stage, you probably miss something from the supply chain. So typically I want to go pretty deep into the back end, so to speak. And I think these are the most important things. Understanding the human decision making, as we heard from Timo. What are they doing there on the Sunday afternoon on the sofa? How does that decision making happen? That's really the crucial part. If you are designing a web shop or anything like that, you might add some widgets that really support that kind of browsing, but then where is the decision making happening? You might actually want to focus on that as well. And test in real life, obviously. But I think this is now a very interesting question each time, like how to get enough data. And yeah, I'm trying to maybe answer that. So who's doing this work right now? And I think that the question is that who are people turning to for answers? So how many of you are in a team that does some digital sales? Relatively many. Maybe 1/3. Very good. So if you have the sales channel in there, who do people turn to for answers? Like, who knows what's going on in there? And I would like to propose that the person who knows best what's actually happening there behind the other screen is a designer, that would be me, with a shopkeeper mentality, who really wants to care what's happening there. And the idea that it's your shop, it's your playground. If a customer comes in and spills milk all over the floor, or if there's like damaged goods back there on the lastauslaituri, then you handle it. And I think also it's the shopkeeper with the curiosity for design and curiosity for changing that design. And these two roles are very, very difficult to kind of tell apart sometimes. I think what's common for them is that you have to be able to pick up the mop and just like clean whatever happening there. And I think these are the kind of the two things that maybe some of my colleagues, some of them just say that, hey, ship it and see what happens. Ship it, we can fix it later. And then I'm maybe sometimes inclined to say that, hey, we should probably figure out like what's even happening there on the sofa or somewhere in there. But really, in reality, it's this. It's happening intertwined, and most of these kind of projects are still relatively long. I'm a very impatient person, so I think like 2 months working on something is a pretty long time. So in 2 months, you have like 60 days, so you have many opportunities to go out there and do user research. And these are examples of user research. So like seeing where the actual transaction of getting soil happens. And this is the kind of place where you need to wear the reflective vest. And for example, in this case, we were working with Kekkilä, and the really important part was that this, what do you call this, kauha, it has a scale in it, and it knows how much of that soil is going there. And so if you're buying that online, and you know exactly the tonnage, like how much has this person ordered, that's where the kind of the mistakes happen, and that's where the disappointments happen. And then on the right-hand side, we have some bedding peat. That's a Bappo product, and that's where the horses poop. So in order to understand what's going on in there, you actually have to go there. Now, I'm allergic to horses. So what I like to do when preparing for these meetings is to create some kind of simple, concrete sketch. You all know this stuff. And like, try to come up with something. And really that is what really is like a tool for communication. I didn't want to take any really embarrassing examples, so it's just like, this is a very rough draft. But if you force yourself to have the real data in there and just force some kind of sketch out of your system, it's really easy to kind of have an interactive prototype of that. And then you use like e-commerce platforms that are actually amazingly good nowadays, or use something like Frame, where you can very easily have the transitions and everything in place. And just do this basic loop of build, measure, learn. You guys know all of this. So force the prototype out of your system. Feeling guilty about the kind of incompleteness is perfectly normal. And then just like go running around with that. That's the user research, I think is very healthy. And really why do this in this order is the fact that if you have the prototype, if you have that sketch with you, you don't have to show it at first. You can keep it in your pocket for a while and really observe and get that understanding. And then if you realize that, okay, well, this guy now has some ideas that are actually contradictory to my design, then show the prototype and see how the emotions come out. And really, like, you find out the problems that way. You find out the assumptions that you had. You can kind of see if you're wrong or not. And really, this is a wonderful place to find the choice of words and the priorities there. I think Antti showed some pretty nice stuff about like how those priorities can also be reordered through computational methods, but they're very healthy. I think this is the place where that happens most comfortably, because you actually learn when talking to the learners. And I would say this is because you actually galley and this galley when just and getting a huge number of kind of thumbs ups or NPS scores or something, but this is the moment where it's actually possible to get the delight. You know, you kind of get that from people if you're face to face. Then also the difference, if they just don't care, if they want to continue whatever they were doing, and also find out if they're super confused. And just like, this is the most important part of that user research phase. And then if you build a prototype and you have it in a digital frame somehow, I strongly recommend using some kind of data gathering tool like Hotjar. And I'm just going to show there advertisement here. It has sounds. So
users' behavior, you can now see which bits of your site they love, where they click, tap, move, how far they scroll, and what they totally ignore. And by playing videos of your visitors, it's as if you're watching the screen over their shoulder. So you can see what turns them off your site and causes abandonment. But it doesn't end there. You can also ask questions directly to your visitors. Ultimately, this means you can optimize your website's user experience, prioritizing content that needs attention for quick and effective results.
So that was an ad. So no reason to think that it's actually that wonderful. But what I think is that if you put the prototype and your sketch, your idea, into the frame where it actually will be used, and you start monitoring that, start tracking those actions and see how far they scroll and so on, that is a very quick way to get that kind of qualitative understanding there. And in my opinion, having Hotjar running all the time in all of the sites, I don't think that's really necessary. I think you should have those questions popping up in those moments where you're actually trying to figure out something. It's not like you should have that on all the time. But I think this is very important. And in my past, I've been doing a lot more paper prototyping and kind of skipping this step. But I think you can only get so far with the paper. And when it comes to like e-commerce site design, I think this is a very important question for each and every little increment there. So is it possible to support that decision making with the current set of elements, like just keeping those things that everybody's already familiar with without adding new stuff there? I think it's been said over and over again that like as little design as possible. Like you don't need new things. I think it really is a matter of organizing those elements and even like just considering something like email newsletters in a very thoughtful way. And I think that's my number one advice. It's the Helsinki Design Week, so here is a picture of Dieter Rams. I have 3 cases, and I think we are short on time, so I'm not going to do any live demos, although I love that. I'm just going to show you a few screenshots. So we were working with Lassila and Tikanoja, and they have a business-to-consumer website, and this was just an example of the shopkeeper attitude. So we did not create the original version of this website or the web shop. It was, I think, a pretty okay design, but it wasn't selling anything. So instead of adding a ton of stuff there and like trying to push down the prices or something, we actually didn't even change the e-commerce store all that much, but we created examples of how these products could be used. And we really made it easy for the property manager, isännöitsijä, to organize talkoot. So that's the get-together where you all work with no pay. And I think just linking to other people's websites, even web shops, and just like being honest about like nobody only wants a vaihtolava. Everybody needs a combination of different things, and nobody is where that kind of understanding that decision making that's comes. And I think up something like 400% after just very simple improvements and focusing on the content there. Then another story from my previous job at Volt is another way of prototyping. So everybody most likely knows the high-level concept of Volt. So it's like a mobile app where you can order and pay from a restaurant, and the restaurant has this iPad, and then the courier has the courier app. And the idea was that wouldn't it look super cool to simply like go to the restaurant and eat there, like restaurant, and use Vault. So that's like the novelty here. And we did consider the wording very carefully here, and we did the user interface so that you kind of have 3 options there. So you could eat at the table. And we were wondering, like, why isn't this selling at all? And why is it such a hard thing to promote to the restaurants? And we figured that, well, because the customers are already there and they're using all the cutlery and everything, it's kind of not fair to ask for a cut of those payments for Vault. So we decided that let's make the restaurants an offer that they can't refuse, and really kind of take these stands and put them on the restaurant tables and just charge 0%. Just give it free. They just will use Vault more. And it's a nice place to kind of also, if you're waiting for your food or something, if you just want to order some more dessert or something, that's like a natural place to kind of have that idle time. Then you might actually also install the app. And our prototype was basically that, and an A5 in there, and I think I hand drew the thing. I'm sorry I don't have a picture of that, but we took this and went to the restaurants, and in the physical world, play acted the thing out, and got the data that no, this will never work because we have a queue here and we are Finnish and everybody should be in the queue. It's not fair. And I think this was just a nice example, they didn't care about the price. They just did not want that inequality in their stores. And right now, if you go to the Vault app, I think it's dim that way in most places. And it's really tough to propose this. So there was that kind of social bottleneck that would have been maybe quite hard to determine using quantitative methods. But yeah, once again, getting that data, getting that understanding through a prototype. And of course, we were very, very sad. We would have wanted to see this work, and we were already we had our design hat on, really kind of thinking about those different ways of having those little placards there. And then one more thing from the pellet business. So this was, again, one of the kind of understanding what makes it difficult to order something. And really, what if the pellet truck that is huge, if it destroys my lawn? So this is Vapokauppa, you can go kauppa.vapo.fi, and if you go and proceed all the way to the order form, this was the problem here. So we actually, through Hotjar and using other kind of very, very qualitative methods, we figured out that removing anxiety at this point is the most important thing. And admit that sometimes the calculations go wrong, but be upfront about it. Just say it in advance, and provide a place for people to speak out, because in these lisätietoja, this additional information field, I was reading those for each and every one order, and that was also the kind of the shopkeeper idea that, okay, if someone is so far in the process that they are already giving us this information, even if they don't decide to submit and go all the way with the purchase, we want to hear what their kind of special concerns are. And these kind of fields are the places where you can get this emotion pretty nicely as well. So was this a data-driven talk? Maybe not. Sorry about that. But I think whatever you are creating, whatever you kind of the kind of creative masterpiece is that is in your sketch or whatever tool you're using, I think one good idea is to try to frame it in a way where you can measure it. Is to where something you feel that that's necessary to get that feedback loop going on, and of course show it to all the people who need to see it while it's in progress. And I think just to end on a kind of this kind of mantra, I would say that the design is also just one tool for the toolkit of the shopkeeper. So if those who raised your hands, if you feel that you want to be the boss, you want to be the person who runs the shop. So thanks.